So, welcome students. Today we are going to start the lecture on surface energy. This is lecture 5, and this section of the lectures from lecture 5 to 6, 7, 8 will be on surface energy related things, and you need to understand this particular aspect very well, because as you know, nanomaterials have very high surface area to volume ratio. This is an important characteristics of nanomaterials, which provides them important mechanical, physical, electrical, electronics, chemical, magnetic, and all kinds of structural and functional properties. So, it is important to know, I am using an important word again and again, important to know these aspects very well. Well, in the last lecture, we started learning about the surface, right? So, surface interfaces are important because they bear significant energy of the system at the nanoscale, and that is why I started the concept of surface energy. So, now I am going to make some recap of that. Surfaces, interfaces, how do they play a role, how to characterize them, how to make an understanding of the whole thing. Okay. So, as you know, surface is everything has a surface. Your body has a surface like a skin. Okay. It serves as the interface of all kinds of interactions, because that is through this agent only, the surface only, everything happens. It serves rather as a gatekeeper of energy transfer, material exchange, and even change of forms or shapes. Surface is essentially a two-dimensional phenomenon. Okay. Now, surface area is what characterizes the surface and also the relative surface energy, that is the surface energy per unit area. So, these are the two important aspects we will focus on. One is the surface energy per unit area, other is the surface area itself. Surface is extremely important for inanimate object or living objects. An important aspect is the surface to volume ratio, correct. So, now why they are important. Let us look at only these aspects. These pictures are taken from various sources. As you know, this is graphene, this is several layers of graphene, that is single wall nanotube, and this is a multi wall nanotube, right. This is single wall nanotube SWT, and this is multi wall nanotube, right. So, now if you look at carefully, once you open up, whether it is a single layer of carbon or several layers of carbon, or it is basically a nanotube, single or multiple layers, once you open it up, what happens is forms a surface. And if you look at carefully this picture, the bottom, okay, let us consider atom inside, forget about red and white and blue. First concentrate that each ball is an atom, focus on that, do not forget about everything else. So, if I consider an atom like this here, okay, this one, you see, oh, let me put a different color so that you can see it nicely. So, I am putting a green color, I am talking about this atom, okay. So, this atom is bonded nicely with this white atom, this white atom, this red atom, this white atom, this red atom, this white atom, this red atom, nicely bonded. That means all its bonds are nicely satisfied. It does not have any hunger to get attached with something else, some other molecules or something else, right, because its bonds are saturated. Now, if you look at an atom sitting on the surface, let us consider a different color. Okay. I will consider red, because that is a very bright color, right. If I consider this atom, right, you see that this is the one I am marking a red arrow. So, now this atom, you could clearly see its bond from the top is not satisfied, because there is no atom existing on the surface, top of the surface thing. Okay. Only on the plane its bonds are satisfied. Unlike this atom, which is sitting inside the bulk of the material, the atom sitting on the top of this plane is unsaturated, right. It has dangling bonds, it has bonds which are not satisfied. Now, what will happen to these bonds? Because they are not satisfied, there are extra electron present on the outer shell of this atom, which are not bonded with anything. So, therefore, it has hunger to get bonded to something, and this hunger leads to what is known as attachment of molecule onto it, its reactivity, many other things. Now, in a bulk material, like if you consider this cell phone, it is a big material, right? This is a very big cell phone. In a bulk material, surface area is very small compared to the atom in the surface is very small compared to the bulk, compared to the atom in the bulk, right? That means number of atoms on the surface like this is very, very minimal as compared to number of atoms like this. And these aspects gives you very important thing. What is that? Because of that, the properties of the material is determined by the atoms in the bulk. They are not determined by the atoms on the surface, because the volume percentage of the atoms sitting on the surface for a bulk material like a book, okay, like water bottle, or like a cell phone, or like a duster, like even this pen, that is almost like 2 to 5% of the total number of atoms, and we ignore their effects. But in nanomaterials, where the surface area is pretty large, that means number of atoms sitting on the surface is very large, you can no longer ignore that. And this is quantity scales with the surface area, scales with the size of a nanomaterial. As the size goes down, this quantity increases. So, this is a very simple analogy which you need to understand. Now, okay, now how do you do that? Okay, so as you understand, surface is nothing but surface is related to energy, that you understood, right? Because surface has this kind of atoms whose has dangling bonds, whose bonds are not satisfied, right? Now, let us suppose surface energy per particle. Okay, yeah. So, before you do that, again if you consider single atom, all its properties, thermal, electrical, and plasma resonance, optical, mechanical, everything is related to the surfaces, because there is all the atoms in a graphene, singular graphene is a surface atom. There is no bulk here. Every atom is sitting on the surface. So, therefore, they have 100% atoms sitting on the surface for a graphene. Have you ever thought of it? Never, right? Because a single layer of carbon, there is nothing below, nothing above. So, only thing which is important for such a kind of aspect is the surface energy, and surface energy of this aspect, because surface area is infinite, is as large as the material. So, surface energy, what is known as the gamma per unit area, is that is what is important for such a kind of material. Well, this is something we discussed about it, but on any other nanomaterial, surface is not a mathematical entity. Okay, it has a finite thickness, right? So, finite thickness means it is a thickness consisting of several layers of atoms. Correct. This is an exercise I have done in the last lecture. You can go and follow that. And so, if I consider the thickness of the layer from 0.5 to about 1.5 nanometers, that is standard normally what people have observed it by during different experimentations. And if you look at ratio of surface area to volume as a function of particle diameter, okay, here is a spherical nanoparticle is considered. That is why particle diameter has come into picture. And if you look at carefully below 5 nanometers, the percentage atoms on the surface for 1 nanometer thickness of the surface is about 80%, and for about 0.5 nanometer thickness surface layer it is about 50%. There is a huge difference. So, therefore, depending on the surface thickness, this value, that is the ratio of surface area to volume, will be drastically changing. And that exactly happens in normal nanomaterials, unlike graphene. If you consider single level multi-layer nanotubes, or basically single level nanotube is exactly the same as a graphene. If you consider multi-layer nanotubes, surface layer and the inside layer has bonding characteristics of the carbon atoms are different. Same thing is valid for any other shapes. So, therefore, these concepts do actually apply. Now, as we consider this case, we will first get an estimate of surface energy as a function of a diameter of a nanoparticle. Let us do that. Okay. So, before I do that, again I am sorry, what is the reason for surface energy? That I have already discussed with you just now. Let me rewrite. Okay. Surface energy is because of the bond which are broken. So, now if I consider that, if I consider the bond energy between atoms is u, small u actually, and this is taken from Bola, that is why they have used u, this is taken from SB, they have taken epsilon, okay, as the bond energy. So, the bond is between two atoms, right, that is very clear. Now, with the surface energy per particle is u surface, let us write it, u surface, surface energy per particle, okay. And thus obviously will be equal to gamma into A. What is gamma? Gamma is the surface energy per unit area, and A is the total area of the surface, right? That's clear, right? Now, as you know, as we told you that the origin of surface energy is the number of bonds broken, right? So suppose there are n number of atoms in a 1 mole of material, n is the number of atoms in 1 mole of material. Let me do that. So, U surface is gamma into A. Gamma is the surface energy per unit area. A is the total area. So, suppose one particle has area of A and surface energy per unit area is gamma, the total surface energy of the particle is UA. Now, in a 1 mole of material, you have n number of particles, then total surface energy we can write down is what? U is basically n gamma E, where n is the number of particle per mole. Right. So, I can write down this thing very easily, that is equal to m by this. What is this quantity? M is the molecular mass or molecular weight, right? Rho is the density, and V is the molar volume, right? That is what it should be. So, that is multiplied by gamma A. It can be written like this. Okay. So, we can modify this. So, now question is this, I can write down very simply m by gamma. So, you understand how this has come. N is the number of particle, right. So, now if you consider each particle has a volume of V, right, each particle has a volume of V, correct. If each particle has a volume of B, okay, each particle has a volume V, n particle has a volume of n into V. Now, if you multiply this one with density, that has become mass. So, that must be equal to molecular weight, because we are considering 1 mole of material. Am I clear? So, therefore, I can write down n is equal to m by V into rho, where this V is the volume of each particle, rho is the density of each particle, and m is the molecular weight. So, I can write down this expression like this. Am I clear? So, that has become m by rho multiplied by gamma multiplied by A by V. A is what? A is the surface energy, surface area of the particle, which is the volume of the particle, right. So, now for spherical, so this is what is the total energy for surface energy for 1 mole. Very simple calculation, you can do that. So, this is per mole actually, okay. Let us write down. Now, for spherical particle, what will happen? For spherical, you can do yourself that one. For other steps, I will do for spherical, okay, spherical particle. Let us erase it up. So, spherical particle, what is area? Tell me the area. Area is 4 pi r square, right. We can write down that as a pi into twice whole square. Twice whole square is 4 pi, 4. So, it become pi d square. What is the volume? Volume is 4/3. Okay, do not ask me that you do not know what is the volume of a sphere, that is well known. 4/3 pi r cube, right. I can write down 4/3 pi r, again I convert into d, so that is d by 2. So, that has become 4/3 pi d cube by 8, that has become pi d cube by 6, right. 4 and 2, 8 can be cancelled like this. So, what is A by V ratio then? A by V is pi d square divided by pi d cube by 6, that has become 6 pi get cancelled, d square d cube by 6 pi d. So, what become my U molecule is m by rho gamma 6 by d, right. So, this becomes m gamma by rho 6 by d, or this is the problem 6 m gamma rho 1 by d. So, what do you understand? You understand that surface energy is not only depends on the size, but it scales with the size. For a spherical particle, it scales 1 by d. So, that means if I plot u mole, u surface energy is mole per mole as a function of d for a spherical nanoparticle, it will be a 1 by d kind of curve, right, parabolic curve. You understand that, right. So, if I plot that, let me erase it some part, this part. Okay, hope you have understood it. I am using this as my board. Okay, you have to understand that. This is the problem. We are normally comfortable with board. So, this is u mole, this is d. How it will look like? It is 1 by d, right? This will be like this. So, for very small size particles, surface energy is very high, right. That is basically coming from the area concept. Remember, we have not made anything about gamma. You have to understand that. We simply made a calculation based on surface area to volume ratio. That is so simple calculation. You do yourself will understand. That tells you the spherical particle, this is what is going to be the thing happening, right. So, I am drawing again because that drawing was not good. So, you do it properly. So, you can clearly see after a certain size, surface energy increases rapidly as a function of particle diameter. So, if you reduce the particle diameter, surface energy will exponentially, or sorry, not surface energy will rapidly rise. Don't say exponentially, that is not a correct language, rapidly will rise. Okay. So, that is for the basic concepts of surface energy from the perspectives of surface area. Now, you know, as I said, it depends on the surface to volume ratio, right, and there are hundreds of examples in nature where this thing actually happens. Simple diffusion in cell is hindered by if the surface to volume ratio decreases, right. This is what happens in your aquaguard, or in the case of your what is that called RO, reverse osmosis process. You need a large surface area for the diffusion osmosis to happen. Why not have one? Why don't I have one gigantic cell rather than a cosmodium, multiple millions of micron sized cells, right? That is because surface area of this intercellular balloon boundary increases. That is what happens in a material like. You want a nano size material, then your gain size areas increases. At the macroscopic cells, why do trees have so many leaves? Okay, have you ever thought about it? No, think about it. Or why do they have integrated rooting system? Why are the lungs filled with alveoli? This is what I told you, right? Our intestines has microvilli. Our blood systems have capillaries. So, nature makes the design of the things based on nanoscale material. This is what just now I discussed, and that is mathematical analysis has a simple corollary in nature. You understand that? Well, so you have seen that with 1 by d rule is valid for spherical nanoparticles. This can be valid for many other things. But before you go into it, let us discuss first what is the surface energy per se. Okay, I'll come back. I'll go back to their side again. So this picture I splashed you know. We only talked about how the surface area to volume ratio can change the surface energy. We didn't talk about gamma, right? Gamma is a specific surface energy. How does it control? How does it control the surface energy of the systems? Let us look at that aspect also. That's very important. Okay, so before I do that, you know, this concept is well known in material science, and surface energy is one of the areas or one of the gray areas which has not been understood properly, but still we have some fundamental concepts. So, fundamentally surface energy is basically because of dangling bonds or the unsatisfied bonds. So, origin of surface energies can be explained by simply considering a model in which the particles are produced by breaking a large solid into small pieces. In order to achieve this, it is necessary to cut the bonds between the neighboring atoms. That is very important. You have to cut the bonds, because you are breaking a big particle into smaller one, like taking a big chalk, breaking it down to small pieces. So, you are breaking bonds, that is obvious, right. In simplified explanation, okay, between two atoms in the lattice energy of bonding, two atoms are bonded, right. That is what is shown here. These two atoms are bonded, these two atoms are bonded, okay, shown by arrows, right. Now, in order to separate one bond energy, you have to separate one bond, you have to spend energy U, because that is the bond energy between two atoms. But the moment you separate or you break a bond, you separate two atoms. So, that means by spending energy U, you are breaking two atoms. So, that means per atom energy is U by 2. That is why I written here epsilon by 2, okay, as we have done rightly. So, therefore, if I have 1 mole, the surface energy is simply N by 2 into U, or in as which terms is N epsilon by 2. That is what is surface energy in a very simplistic form. So, within the interior of the particles, suppose this one, okay, this one is bonded nicely, bonded nicely, bonded nicely, bonded nicely, correct. But what about surface atoms? Are they bonded nicely or not? Right, that is very important thing to understand. Well, we are going to a very important concepts. So, maybe we can take about half a minute of break, so that you can come back. So, you understand surface energy is the critical. So, think about surface energy for your body, right. So, if you have less number of fingers, you have less surface energy, right. You have more number of fingers, you have more surface energy. Think of the people who have 6 fingers. One finger has a lot of extra surface energy, right, surface area. Well, let us come back. Fine, that is a joke. Okay, so now what will happen to the atom sitting on the surface? Let us look at it that carefully. So, I told you this atom sitting inside the crystal. This atom is bonded nicely, bonded nicely, bonded nicely, bonded nicely, correct? But what about this atom? This is bonded nicely, bonded nicely, bonded nicely. No bond on this side, right? Same thing is valid for this, valid for this. So, at a plane surface, correct, this aspect, that reduced number of bonds, correct, creates a force acting on the atom perpendicular to the surface. So, this is the surface. So, because of these dangling bonds or unsatisfied bonds, a force F acting on this, or basically a force F acts on these atoms perpendicular to the surface. Why it is perpendicular to the surface? This is the surface, this is the perpendicularity, right. Oops, I should be able to draw it properly. No, I am doing all kinds of mistake. So, right, that is the direction of the force is acting, and force is acting on each of these atoms, and thus force is F. Am I clear? Now, at a plane surface, this does not cause any hydrostatic pressure. You know hydrostatic pressure, right? You think about a cycle tire, it is inflating. So, any element inside the surface tire is basically under hydrostatic pressure. That is why you are putting a air. You can, otherwise you can have a solid tire, but this will not basically work. So, you need a hydrostatic pressure inside that. So, because of this force will not get any hydrostatic pressure on the material, but this will lead to stress on the surface. You might be thinking, what is this? Very simple, because this force is acting perpendicular to this plane surface. So, this will lead to stretching of the atoms, and stretching means a force. So, now this force is known. The stress is basically force divided by the area of each atom. A is the area of each atom and sigma is the force. Okay, sigma is again not done properly. So, sigma is the force, right? Sigma is the stress, and this stress is known as a surface stress. So, we can write down surface. This is the stress acting on each of this atom, and this is known as a surface stress. This is something new, correct? Now, this surface stress will depend on the amount of stretching. Amount of stretching will depend on the force. If you have only a single bond dangling for each atom, the force is one kind, but you have 2 or 3 bonds dangling, force will be more. So, more the force is, more will be the stretching. As the more is the stretching, more is the stress. Force more means more is the stress. So, you understand that this surface stress depends on the stretching. Now, this surface stress has been modeled, and remember this one will affect the surface energy. You must be thinking why? Because you are generating extra stress in the material. You are generating extra stress on the surface of the material. So, that will be affecting your energy of the system, is it not? Because that is an extra energy you are paying, or extra energy you are creating because of the surface dangling bonds. So, that has to be paid up. So, now obviously, the surface free energy or gamma will be depending on this amount of stretching. Amount of stretching is epsilon s. How much these bonds will get stretched because of this force F acting on them, that will be deciding the surface energy also, much like a stretching of a rubber screen. So, as you know, gamma can be now written as gamma 0 plus gamma s, which will depend on epsilon s, right? You got it? That is very clear. And this gamma 0 is again what I did, I wrote n by 2 u, and this is gamma s epsilon s. So, that is your total gamma. So, now I know these aspects, and I know this epsilon s, epsilon is related to the surface stress, right. So, gamma s depends on epsilon s depends on the surface stress sigma. So, I can do a simple math, which I am not doing that, I am leaving it to you. So, I can write down gamma surface is equal to, sorry, not gamma, sigma surface is equal to gamma, this gamma plus d gamma s v epsilon s. Do you understand that? This will directly come from that. Okay. Well, it assumes that the sigma surface and epsilon s, they are directly related. They are not complexly related. They will have a linear or kind of relationship. That is understandable. In the elastic stretching regime, you can always apply Young's law, right? So, you can do that. Okay, now for a liquid, this term goes to 0, correct? For a liquid, the stretching of atom or stretching of the surface flame will not lead to change of surface energy, or basically not lead to any create of any surface stress rather, correct? For a solid, it will, and this will depend on amount of force or amount of stretching. So, more the stretching, more is the surface stress, and more will be surface energy for solid. So, this part is never dealt when you talk about the effect of surface area on the total energy surface energy system, right? This part is ignored. So, you understand that surface energy is first and foremost important thing is in a nanomaterial, solid nanomaterial. Surface energy is critically going to depending on this surface stress. Okay. So, that means surface energy has two components. One is the bond breaking, that is given by Nu by 2 in a per mole, other one is your because of stretching, correct. It is very difficult to estimate this. There is no experimental procedure in the world available today which can allow to estimate this gamma s. So, what you can do? Well, you can actually calculate gamma s if you know the total gamma and if you know the number of bonds broken. But in most of the cases, it is very difficult to know how many number of bonds are broken. Bond energy U can be known for a material. Let us talk about graphene actually. You can easily get these things. You know, graphene sheets are basically not a flat, they have lot of undulations, and this undulation is basically because of stretching. Okay, there are many reasons for it, but one of the reasons is surface stress, right. So, that leads to change in the surface area of your system. Well, that is one part of it. So, you understand, right? I hope so. I am not talking much about it, I hope so you understand it. Okay, next couple of slides, what I am going to do is this. You know, surface energy also depends on the gamma basically, also depends on orientation. How? Oh, yes, that is very important. How do you know that? Well, think of a cubic crystal. Okay. I will draw it here because I need to use this part. So, I draw a cube FFCC crystal. Okay. I will draw two FCC crystal, one with atom and one without atom. This is with atom, without atom, right. So, let us mark three important planes, 1, 1, 1 and okay, different color. This one is what? This one is 1, 1, 0, right. Let me write down. And this one is red one, is 1, 1, 1. How do you know that? This is x, this is y, this is z. You do it yourself. Along x1, along y1, along z infinity, so that is 1, 1, 0. Along x1, along z1, along y1, 1, 1, 1, and what about this plane? Okay, let us use a green thing, right. This is what? 1, 0, 0. That is a plane which is cutting x axis 1 parallel to y and parallel to z. So, these are the three prominent planes in a FCC crystal. So, now I draw the atoms. Okay. So, let us use a back color to draw the unit cell. I am sorry, because it is at the end of the slide, still it is okay, understandable. Now, I put the atoms, corner atoms. You can do yourself, right? Corner atoms are very easy. Then you have all light corner atoms, then face center atom, top surface, bottom surface, side surface, side surface, side surface, side surface. Now, you tell me, if the origin of gamma is a bond breaking, now if I consider first one is your surface, that is this one, the green, okay. How many bonds are broken? So, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5 atoms are sitting on the surface, correct. So, bonds of those 5 atoms are broken and surface area is A into A square, correct. So, gamma is basically total number of bonds broken. So, for each atom you know if you know how many bonds are broken, then you can calculate easily. It does not do that, okay. And if you know the bond energy among them, divide by the surface area, that is A square. So, what about 1, 1, 0 plane? How many atoms are there? You can see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 6. Number of atoms are different also. If this is the plane which is surface plane, then 6 atoms will be sitting in the surface, right? And their bonds will be not satisfied. So, if you for the sake of simplicity, if you assume 6 bonds are not satisfied, 6 into u multiplied by what? Area is different here, a multiplied into a root 2. So, root 2 a square, right. So, that is 3. So, I can write down gamma 110 is 6 u root 2, right. Gamma 1 will write here, gamma 5 u. What about gamma 1 Well, that is very easy. On the 1 plane, 1 atom, 2 atom, 3 atom, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put 6, again 6, right? 6 u. And what is the area? Root A. So, 2 a square. So, you tell me, are they all same? Obviously not, correct, they are all not same. So, that means this gamma in FCC crystal depends on the orientation. What is the surface? That will dictate the gamma. So, as you understand, in a real crystals, the surface will be like this, zigzag, correct? And you can actually calculate the orientation by angle theta. So, if you use a laboratory frame of reference x and y, okay, this is y, this is x, two dimensional plane, you can calculate the angle theta or alpha, correct. So, then you can measure, you can know how the surface energy is depending on the angle, angular related, okay, orientation dependent, right. That is you can do it, because this is for a single crystal, one unit cell, but material will never be one unit cell, no, it will be a large unit cells, whatever the dimension. So, there depending on the surface, it will be depending on the how these planes are oriented with respect to the your frame of reference. So, if your frame of reference is like that, I have drawn it x and y, and then you put this crystal on that plane of references, the angle each surface will make with respect to that is what is the orientation. So, now it has been calculated. If you consider such a kind of constructions, this is taken for Dieter Volat again. If you taken for such a kind of construction, gamma theta will be u divided by 2a, okay, into cos theta plus sin, remember that this is mod theta, sin mod theta. So, theta may be, because in case of sin minus plus make difference, that is why sin mod theta. So, let me write it down again very big way. So, that u theta is u by 2a, it is a gamma theta, not u theta, again I am making some mistake. Cos theta plus sin. This is an relationship in a 2D. So, that means if you know bonds energy, if you know the distance a, okay, a is basically diameter of the your atom, and if you know the angle theta, each plane, one plane is making with laboratory frame of reference or your frame of reference, then you can calculate this. So, first thing is that I told you gamma depends on the surface stress. You remember that, or surface traction. Then I told you gamma also depends on orientation of the each plane. So, you understand that we started with, let us not complicate things because this will confuse you. We started with gamma into area, and first we made a relationship between how the size will change the surface energy. And I told you for spherical size it is basically m divided by rho, m gamma divided by rho multiplied by 1 by d. It will vary depending on the cubic particle, you have particle shape like a cylinder or something, that you can do yourself. We will come back to it maybe today or in the next lecture. Then we talked about how the specific surface energy gamma will behave. You understand that? So, gamma in a solid depends on the surface stress, right? You see this, the surface traction, and I told you how it is going to vary. And third thing we discussed today is surface energy also depends on crystallographic orientation, right? So, next 5 minutes or so, yeah, this is what it is shown, this equation nicely taken from Victor Horlat's book, it is there. Now, if you plot surface energy function of theta from any reference plane, okay. So, as you see the crystallographic orientation function theta, number of Boken bonds per unit surface is different, okay. So, in a cubic system anisotropic surface energy of different crystallographic planes may be calculated by this. So, now we can always define, as you can clearly see, surface energy of 111 plane is lower than surface energy of 110 plane, is lower than surface energy of 100 plane. So, we can define an anisotropy parameter which is known as okay, we should not use epsilon, let us use some other things because you will confuse otherwise. So, let us use this parameter. So, this is actually known as like this. So, this will be all less than 1, this is called anisotropy parameter. So, that means surface energy is not isotropic in all crystallographic directions, it is anisotropic and it depends on the crystallographic direction, that is what it tells you. And how strong is anisotropy is dictated by the ratio gamma of 111 divided by gamma of 100. Okay? So, now one can have cubic anisotropy in case of cubic crystal, one can have tetragonal anisotropy in tetragonal crystals, one can have orthorhombic, hexagonal, different kinds of crystal are different kind of anisotropic parameters. And that is how we can actually get generalized expressions of gamma, which we may discuss sometime later, not now. Okay, the last thing which I like to talk about it, surface energy also depends on curvature, and I leave it to that. How it is? Well, that is very simple here, we do not need to talk about much, right. How it will depends on surface curvature, you know that, right. All solid materials have finite sizes, they are not infinite. So, because of that, you know, it has some local curvature, right, you know that, right. It is not, I do not need to tell you this. So, it important aspect is the geometry of this surface. So, specifically geometry of the surface will be the curvature of the surface, am I clear? And that is actually effects in normally known as a capillary effect. You must be wondering why it is known as a capillary effect, because all the experiments to study the curvature or effect of curvature was done on capillaries or glass tubes basically. That is why it is known as a capillary effect. Very interesting. In olden days people used to use glass tubes and to look at a pour liquid and see how the curvature changes. That is how the capillary term came. So, we are talking about two-dimensional curves, and in this figure you see I have shown you a curve like this, and now then I have drawn a circle with radius r touching the curve at point C. So, that means we can define the curvature by a term known as radius of curvature, okay, k known as 1 by r. Okay, this is r. So, 1 by r is what is known as the radius of curvature. It is not gamma, it is r. Those of you will be I think it is better I write properly. Okay, it is gamma and r will be confusing, right? Correct? So, this is also. So, this is known as a curvature, correct. So, as you see this curvature will change depending on the location of the curve. This is at point C. So, if you move out from point C, if you go to here or there or here, it is changing, it is not same. And to determine that, you can everywhere you have to draw a circle touching that point on the curve. and then only you will know what is the curvature. Well, that is very important, am I right? So, as you know, curvature can be two types, convex and concave. By nomenclature, this is not my nomenclature, this is standard nomenclature. For the convex surface, radius of curvature is positive. So, it is not yes, radius of curvature. For the concave, it is negative. So, magnitude of that is depending on the type of curvature, convex or concave. So, now you know the all of you know soap bubble experiments, right? You have done in your plus 2 or maybe later on. If you want to calculate what is the pressure inside a soap bubble, you can do that. That depends on twice gamma by r, right? So, if I have to calculate free energy in this because of this curvature, this is equal to be pressure change into volume. Pressure change means pressure inside the curved surface and outside this. That is what is happening in soap bubble. You have done this experiment P2 minus P1, and that is given by twice gamma by r, and this is here again r I should write like that, confusing otherwise for many of you. That is it. This is what you should know, delta P is twice gamma by r, gamma is the surface energy, right, and that is what is the delta G. So, you understand because of curvature, now for the convex and convex curvature this delta G will vary, because for a convex it is positive 1 by r, for concave it is negative 1 by r. This has tremendous ramification on the nanomaterials. So, I am going to stop here, we will come back in the next lecture on this aspect only. Till then, have a nice time.